Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the June 17th BOC zoning hearing. I'm Joanne Burrell, your vice chair this year, and I will be conducting the meeting today in the chairwoman's absence. So thank you for your patience. If you would please stand for the invocation brought by Father Linworth Houghton, and I will lead us in a pledge.
Good morning. I invite you to bow your heads for prayer. Let us pray. Teach us, good Lord, to serve you as you deserve, to give and not to count the cost, to fight and not to heed the wounds, to toil and not to seek for rest, to labor and not to ask for any reward, save that of knowing that we are doing your will through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. We continue in prayer as we pray for sound government. O Lord, our governor, bless the leaders of our land, that we may be a people at peace among ourselves and a blessing to other nations of the earth. To our president and members of the cabinet, to governors of states, mayors of cities, and to all in administrative authority, grant wisdom and grace in the execution of their duties. To senators and representatives, and those who make our laws in states, counties, cities, and towns, give courage, wisdom, and foresight to provide for the needs of all our people and to fulfill our obligations in the community of nations. To the judges and officers of our courts, give understanding and integrity, that human rights may be safeguarded and justice served. Lord, teach our people to rely on your strength and to accept their responsibilities to their fellow citizens, that they may elect trustworthy leaders and make wise decisions for the well-being of our society, that we may serve you faithfully in our generation and honor your holy name always. For yours is the kingdom, O Lord, and you are exalted as head above all. Amen. I now invite you to join with me in praying the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. If you will join me in the pledge, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Father, for being here today. Okay. It's Eric. You see Eric? Okay. Okay. So I am going to turn the meeting over to John Peterson to go through the rules and order of the agenda today.
And thank you, Madam Vice Chair and Board. Today's hearing will be conducted with the following process and procedure. Each case will be called in numerical order. We would ask that the applicant please stand and raise their hand to show that they're in attendance. After that, we're going to call to see if there's anyone here opposed to that specific case. We would also ask that the opposition please stand and raise their hand so they can be counted for the official record. After recognizing both parties will be asked to come forward to be sworn in. The applicant will testify first, and then the opposition, if any, will testify second. It's important to note that each side only gets 10 minutes to state their case or concerns. There's not a rebuttal process, and there's not a process to reserve your time. So please convey all your information to the board within your 10-minute time period. Additionally, if there's more than one person here who wishes to speak on a case, you may want to coordinate with each other about what you're going to talk about, because each side only gets 10 minutes, and you don't want to cover the same information over and over. After that, the board will start to discuss the case at hand. From the discussion, they may ask one or more speakers to come back to the front for additional comments or questions. Then the board will make a decision to either approve, deny, hold, or continue the case at hand. There are a number of cases on today's printed agenda which have been continued by the staff of the Planning Commission, and these cases will not be heard today. First case is rezoning case Z2 of 2024, Florinori Development Group LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the July 1st, 2025 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z2 of 2024 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z9 of 2025, Whataburger Restaurants LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the July 1st, 2025 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z9 of 2025 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z14 of 2025, Mike Heck. This case was continued by the staff until the July 1st, 2025 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z14 of 2025 will not be heard today. LUP 19 of 2025, INL Salas. This case was continued by the Planning Commission, or excuse me, this case was held by the Planning Commission until the July 1st, 2025 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So LUP 19 of 2025 will not be heard today. LUP 24 of 2025, Brandon Lorenzo. This case was held by the Planning Commission until the July 1st, 2025 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So LUP 24 of 2025 will not be heard today. SLUP 2 of 2025, Freebird Communications LLC. This case was continued by the Planning Commission until the July 1st, 2025 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So SLUP 2 of 2025 will not be heard today. Other business item number 22 of 2025, Whataburger Restaurants LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the July 15th, 2025 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. So other business item number 22 of 2025 will not be heard today. Madam Chair and Board, I did get word that we need to continue rezoning case Z13 of 2025. That's Alliance Residential Company. There are a few more details that need to be worked out with rezoning case Z13, Madam Vice Chair and Board. So the staff would ask the board to continue rezoning case Z13 until your July 15th zoning hearing.
Commissioner Allen, would you like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to continue Z13 until the next meeting.
Second. Any discussion? Call the question. Vote carries 4-0 with Chairwoman Cupid absent.
Okay. And before we begin the hearing, I would like to ask the people in today's audience, if you have a cell phone, please turn the volume off on your cell phones because the ringing does interfere with broadcasting presentations. And I want to remind applicants, opposition, or any interested party that information is due to this board the Wednesday prior to this hearing. Any information submitted after the Wednesday due date may or may not be considered by the board at their discretion. And with that, Madam Vice Chair and Board, I'm ready to start the consent agenda. Cobb County Board of Commissioners zoning hearing consent agenda for June 17th, 2025. First case on consent is rezoning case Z12 of 2025, Belmont Century LLC. Request rezoning from NS to NRC for a retail store in land lots 277 and 278 of the 16th district. The property is located on the west side of Kent Road, south of Hawkins Store Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval of Z12 to the NRC zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Number one, site plan received by the zoning division on March 17th, 2025, with the district commissioner approving minor modifications. Number two, variances as stated in the zoning division comments and recommendations. Number three, fire department comments and recommendations. Number four, water and sewer division comments and recommendations. Number five, Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. And number six, stormwater management division comments and recommendations. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z12? Okay, let the record show there's no one opposed. Rezone case Z12. Moving into land use permits on consent, LUP 18 of 2025. RDMO Cauldron request a temporary land use permit to allow more people and vehicles than the code allows in land lot 56 of the 17th district. The property is located on the north side of Walnut Circle, across from Birchwood Court. The Planning Commission recommends approval of LUP 18 for 12 months, subject to the following condition. Number one, no chipper or dump truck to be parked in the driveway or in front of the house. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to LUP 18? Let the record show there's no one opposed.
And I'd like to add additional conditions. No parking on the grass or gravel. Parking must be on a hardened and treated surface, and one vehicle to be parked in the garage and the others on the driveway. And all other comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict.
That's your motion?
Yes.
Okay. And just for discussion,
Sure.
a total of 5 cars, 1 in the garage and 4 in the driveway.
Correct.
Okay. And then no outdoor storage?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll second. Go ahead.
I just have one question for clarification. Did you say they were not allowed to park on gravel?
Correct.
Which vehicle isn't allowed to park on gravel? Because our code allows for parking on gravel. So is
Well-
there a specific vehicle or?
Not a specific vehicle. I spoke with Ulisa yesterday, and if it's on gravel, it has to be treated. So this is loose gravel. It hadn't been solidified. So that's where the issue is coming in.
And Commissioner Sheffield, I'm looking at a Google Maps picture of the house, and there is no garage or carport on this house.
Okay, all right. So parking will be on the driveway?
That's correct.
In the driveway, excuse me, yeah. Okay, thank you for that correction. I think that was another case.
Do you want to modify your motion then?
Yep. I make a motion, well, we approved it, but to add additional conditions to no parking on grass or gravel, and the parking must be on a hardened and treated surface, and all vehicles are to be parked in the driveway. And that concludes my revised motion.
4 vehicles or 5 on the driveway?
For the number that can fit on the driveway, I mean, we can't restrict them from parking on the street.
Maximum 4 outside.
Okay, so it's 4.
It's 4, but if the driveway allows for 5, then they can park on the driveway. I'd prefer them park on the driveway than the street. However, the road is public and they can park on a public road.
The request is for 5 cars.
Right.
Parked on the property.
Right.
Of which all 5 have to be parked outside because there is no garage or carport.
Right.
And I'm looking at the photo, it looks like there's room to park 5 in the driveway. It's gonna be tight, but it looks like there's room.
Right. So then what's the issue?
So my understanding, just to clarify, is Commissioner Sheffield is approving this for the 5 vehicles for 12 months with the following conditions: that they have to be parked on the
On the
driveway.
driveway.
It's- So if I'm understanding correctly, the additional steps you were adding was knowing that there would be 5 vehicles for the maximum of 12 months.
Right, on the driveway, because this has been a code enforcement issue for some time where there's been parking on the grass. So I just want to reinforce the prohibition of parking on the grass and the gravel surface because the gravel is not treated. So the issue is the gravel is falling off into the road.
Okay,
Anything else?
So what's the next case?
okay.
We have to vote on it.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's consent, I'm sorry.
Okay, next case on consent, moving into other business cases, is other business item number 14 of 2025, which is consider installing a gate and making Alatoona Heights subdivision a private road for David Pearson Communities Incorporated. The property is located at the western end of Collins Road in land lot 190 and 191 of the 20th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, Cobb DOT comments contained in the other business packet. Number 2, water and sewer comments contained in the other business packet. Number 3, stormwater management comments contained in the other business packet. Number 4, fire department comments contained in the other business packet. And number 5, site plan received May 22nd, 2025, with the district commissioner approving the final site plan. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 14? Let the record show there's no one opposed.
John, if I'd like to add one additional stip that was brought to my attention. And for the clerk, for the order, because I know you listed, I want this to be the first stipulation listed, please. I would like to add a stipulation that any gate, fence, or wall shall be compliant with Cobb County Code.
Okay. All right, next item is other business, item number 23 of 2025.
Do we need to ask if the applicants?
He shook his head yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sorry.
Okay, next case is other business item number 23 of 2025. Jamila Brown requests consideration of a lot size reduction from 20,000 square feet to 13,397 square feet for property located on the south side of Gresham Road, east of Glencrest Drive, in Land District 16, Land Lot 1137. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, stormwater management comments contained in the other business packet. Number 2, Cobb DOT comments contained in the other business packet. And number 3, minimum lot size approved to be 13,397 square feet. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 23? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Other business item number 26 of 2025 is to consider amending the stipulations for Marietta Central Hispanic SDA Church regarding rezoning application Z65 of 1998. The property is located on the northwest side of Smyrna Powder Springs Road, west of Landmark Drive, in Land Lot 200 of the 17th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, water and sewer comments contained in the other business packet. Number 2, site plan review comments contained in the other business packet. Number 3, Cobb DOT comments contained in the other business packet. Number 4, fire department comments contained in the other business packet. And number 5, additional use of a church is permitted. Is the applicant present? Applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 26? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Moving on to the next item. Other business item number 27 of 2025 is to consider a site plan amendment for the Home Depot, Inc. regarding rezoning application number 419 of 1984 for property located on the south side of Paces Fair Road, the west side of I-285, the north side of Crestview Drive, and on the east side of Hillcrest Drive, in land lots 769, 815, 816 of the 17th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, letter from Ellen Smith dated May 13th, 2025. Number 2, site plan received May 13th, 2025, with the district commissioner approving the final site plan. Number 3, stormwater management comments contained in the other business packet. Number 4, Cobb DOT comments contained in the other business packet. And number 5, all previous stipulations not in conflict remain in effect. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 27? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Other business item number 28 of 2025 is to consider a site plan amendment for the Home Depot, Inc. regarding rezoning application Z32 of 1994 and Z86 of 1998 for property located on the north side of Paces Fair Road, the east side of Spring Hill Parkway, and the west side of I-285 in land lots 814, 815, and 842 of the 17th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, letter from Ellen Smith dated May 13th, 2025. Number 2, site plan received May 13th, 2025, with the district commissioner approving the final site plan. Number 3, fire department comments contained in the other business packet. Number 4, stormwater management comments contained in the other business packet. Number 5, Cobb DOT comments contained in the other business packet. And number 6, all previous stipulations not in conflict remain in effect. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 28? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Next item on consent is other business item number 29 of 2025, which is to consider amending the stipulations and an impervious surface variance from 35% to 37.93% for Chad Davis regarding rezoning application Z108 of 2003. The property is located on the west side of Ellis Farm Drive at Peacedale Court in land lot 119 of the 19th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, site plan received May 15th, 2025, with the district commissioner approving the final site plan. Number 2, stormwater management comments contained in the other business packet. Number 3, Cobb DOT comments contained in the other business packet. Number 4, stormwater management recommendations to be done within 90 days of the Board of Commissioners' final decision. And number 5, all previous stipulations not in conflict remain in effect. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 29? Let the record show there's no one opposed. And that completes the consent agenda, Madam Vice Chair and Board.
So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented? Or
So-
was it revised, as revised?
As revised.
Because we added still.
So moved.
Sorry.
Second.
Discussion, I would like the record to reflect I'm opposed to LUP 18 and other business 29. So call the question. Motion carries 4-0 with Chairwoman Cupid absent and
Yeah.
the reflects the opposition.
Okay, all those folks that were approved on consent, you're free to leave. Just leave quietly, please, and we'll continue on with the next case. Okay, rezoning case Z68 of 2024, Saks Austell LLC, request rezoning from R20 to NRC for a convenience store with fuel sales, retail, and a drive-through restaurant in land lot 84 of the 17th District. The property is located on the west side of Austell Road, north of Chamberlain Circle. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z68? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Would the applicant please come forward to be sworn in?
We're ready. You have 10 minutes, and there's a clock at the podium to present your case.
Yeah, my name is Amin Chagani, and I represent Saks Austell LLC. We are proposing a development on this lot that would be a retail building with a drive-through on the side, and that the proposed we have is the Zaxby's or maybe similar use for the drive-through, and we have two retail options up there, and we are discussing with Verizon and T-Mobile, and on the other side we have some food options that we have available over there. We are just discussing with some pizza giants and stuff, and also we are proposing a convenience store site right next to it. We have been going through a Board of Commissioners, and we have submitted all the required documents and everything from traffic study, landscaping, architectural plan and everything, what is needed, and Board of Commissioner has gracefully approved it. And you have all the information, I guess, available with the zoning case.
Is that all? You have anything else you want to say? Okay. Well, I think we have to hear there wasn't any opposition, right? Okay.
There's no opposition.
Go ahead. Sorry.
So in your slide presentation, you said you had Austell Road guidelines?
Yeah.
So my question is, are you going on Austell Road or Canton Road?
No, this is an
Austell.
Austell Road. This is not
This
even near
is
the
District
Trenton.
2.
This is Austell.
This is an Austell Road.
Okay.
Commissioner
I,
Allen.
I know there were,
I see what's, I saw it.
okay.
It's in my book. It's okay.
I was going to say, don't tell me I have another one on Canton Road. Commissioner Allen, you had,
Yeah, I know there were some concerns on the traffic study that was submitted. Is this the appropriate time to call up someone from DOT to make sure those were addressed?
yeah, yes, you can have them take a seat, and if you have
Yeah.
more questions, you can call them back up. What?
Go ahead.
We have an order here, y'all, that we need to follow. Ms. Blair, can you kind of help us with procedures here?
You want to, if your presentation has been done for, supporting you want to close the public hearing because there was no opposition. And then the board takes the discussion, and then they can be called up if there's any questions as to, from the board.
So did you have anything else you wanted to present in your 10 minutes that you have?
That would be all. We have already provided everything we've been going through for last 7 months with the county. And we
Right.
diligently just provided all the information that has been needed. And yes, we have just done pretty much everything is with the report you have in front of you.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome.
So you can have a seat, and if there's any more discussion, Commissioner Allen or any commissioner can call you back up
Sure.
for questions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So now do you want to call Amy Diaz up?
Yes.
Amy Diaz, DOT.
Good morning, Amy. I know there were some last-minute concerns with the traffic study, and the applicant was working with DOT. Can you tell me where you are in those conversations, and has your concerns been remedied?
That's two questions. So they did complete the traffic study. They did get it approved at the end of last week. And so that portion of the zoning application is satisfied. So we have accepted and approved their traffic study. However, when we get a traffic study and approve it, one of the reasons why we ask for these and go through this process is so that we can revise our recommendations if necessary after we get the results of the traffic study. Our comments, which were revised on Friday after we got the traffic study and approved it, have some concerns about the southbound U-turn at Chamberlain Circle on Austell Road. The traffic study identified that it will be a level service F in the future in the AM. And it will not, based on our review, first of all, it's a GDOT roadway, and they have very strict signalization requirements, but it would not, the only thing you can do is really, it would be signalized, which it would not qualify for, and we would not recommend a signal at that location. So the recommendations that we provided on Friday mentioned that we would strongly recommend a revised site plan that has a lower trip generation, a lower intensity, because otherwise there's going to be a level of service F there that we have recommended they add an eyebrow to kind of improve the turning experience for their clients, but it will not solve the level of service F. There will still be an excessive amount of delay during the AM period.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
So is it at an F now?
No, so. Let me
Because
pull up
I'm
what it
looking at
is
the
now.
comments, but,
It's the revisions from Friday.
Yeah, in the comments, it
that's
tells
not in
the
here.
increase in the amount of delay. But let me pull up the actual letter delay in the existing, because I do have it up. That's the background. So the existing capacity analysis, it is at E with basically 40 seconds of delay, 39.9 seconds of delay. In the future, it exceeds 300 seconds of delay with an F. So it's greatly increased by a percentage. That's the percentage that's included in the comments.
so, what do you want? Okay.
Before you make your motion, I do have a question for the applicant, if the applicant can approach.
Thank you, Amy.
Hi, I have a question for you. The proposed development is a fuel station, and you'll have retail there. My question regarding the convenience store is it your plan to sell alcohol? Because that's usually a separate process. And generally, when we see these developments or these proposals come before us, it's an approval for a convenience store, but then you come later on to ask for the alcohol license. So I just want to know on the front end, is it your plan to sell alcohol at this location?
Yeah, it's going to be beer and wine.
Beer and
not
wine.
liquor, yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, is that all?
All right, I'd like to make a motion to continue, hold, pending the site plan revision, and any other items to be addressed in the comments from DOT
For 1 month?
for
or
1 month.
What?
So let me amend that to hold for 2 months,
Okay, that would be August 19th.
August 19th.
I'll second. Or did you second? Okay, second. Any discussion? Call the question. Motion carries 4-0.
Okay, next case is rezoning case Z7 of 2025, Fort and Cole Street LLC. Request rezoning from R15 to FST for townhomes in land lot 639 of the 19th district. The property is located on the northwest corner of Powder Springs Road and Wood Meadows Drive. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z7? So is that 3? 3? Okay, let the record show there's 3 people here opposed. All those who would like to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in. And also, can I get a show of people here who are in support of rezoning case Z7? Please stand up and raise your hands. 1. Okay, let the record show there's 1 person here in support. Four, okay. We need correct record to show there's 4 people in opposition.
Oh, he's after I use these then. That's cool. Yep. Cool. Ready? Good morning, Commissioners. Kevin Moore here on behalf of the owner, property owner and applicant in this application for rezoning concerns almost 5 acres of property located at the intersection of Powder Springs Road and Wood Meadows Drive. Also, the intersection across the street is Pear Road and Powder Springs Road, which is a signalized intersection. You can see where the property is located on your screens. That's Powder Springs Road along the right-hand side. Also, of particular note, where this property is located, you can see that it's adjacent to commercial property, planned shopping center, as well as LRC. And then across Powder Springs Road is NRC and NS. Those are NRCs. Also commercial zonings and shopping centers that are located across Powder Springs Road and adjacent to it on its north side. However, Wood Meadows Drive is a street that goes through back into a neighborhood, an established longtime neighborhood, but this property is located out on the intersection. This is important from a standpoint of land use planning and what we believe is appropriate land use planning. Your Cobb County Comprehensive Plan and Future Land Use Map, which you have adopted, designates this property not as being within a community activity center or a neighborhood activity center, but being within a medium density residential or MDR future land use plan designation. And now you can see that on your screen. You can see that it is adjacent to a neighborhood activity center, the NAC designations that you see, but it's designated as MDR. And that's appropriate from a future land use standpoint. You can view this map and understand why you as the county and your planners have designated this property as MDR and not included within the neighborhood activity center, or which would indicate future retail growth. This side street of Wood Meadows is a residential street. It would be inappropriate from our standpoint for this property to be designated as commercial. Rather, what's being shown and reflected in your future land use plan is what we would consider to be appropriate land use planning by providing a transition from the heavily traveled Powder Springs Road, where we have a traffic light at this intersection, where you have the intensity of commercial uses, even though in a neighborhood activity center, to this neighborhood, and it's designated as MDR. And that provides that transition from the commercial, from Powder Springs Road, to the low-density residential established neighborhood to the rear. And that's why this is shown as MDR. It's really classic land use planning from that standpoint. We're bringing forth a proposal consistent with this future land use plan. Our proposal for this nearly 5 acres is to rezone the property to the fee simple townhome category for a project of maximum of 24 townhomes. And we'll have the land use plan showing our proposed site plan for you for a townhome project at this location, the density of which is 4.9 units per acre. So it's within your future land use plan of MDR. And that's why we think it's very important to go through that exercise of at least presenting what your land use plan and future land use plan holds and what it tells us. And it says that this project as proposed is consistent with your Cobb County Comprehensive Plan and future land use map. The proposal has an entrance on Wood Meadows Drive off of Powder Springs Road. And like I said, it's a smaller development. It's only 24 homes which are proposed. In addition, we do have identified locations for the new community amenities, as well as the other aspects of the plan that you see coming in off of Wood Meadows. One item I do want to reflect and inform you of is that as part of your Planning Commission's unanimous recommendation for approval, the Planning Commission did include, and we discussed it at that hearing, an increase of the landscape buffer along that western boundary. You'll see that's the boundary along your left-hand side of that property, to increase that landscape buffer from 10 feet to 20 feet, which we are in agreement with that Planning Commission recommendation as well. This project, as it's gone through the process, initially there were stormwater comments and recommendations where there were several questions that were asked. We met with stormwater and in fact responded to stormwater item and comment by comment, simply agreeing with those comments and informing stormwater that at permitting those items have been included in our preliminary hydrology, our preliminary engineering, so that those can be handled at the final detail level when you have that level of engineering. We believe we've answered those questions to the satisfaction of stormwater management at this early stage. but primarily it's because you do have 2 detention ponds that are needed at this location for development of this property. One is on, as you can see, the larger stormwater management facility that is more towards the intersection, and one towards the rear. We have done the research and determined we can ensure that the stormwater flows from this site reach the appropriate locations as indicated by stormwater management, and that we can do so through a combination of utilizing existing drainage easements as well as piping that will be necessary for that. So we can get the stormwater where it needs to go in a managed and controlled manner in accordance with your codes and ordinances and stormwater management's recommendations, which we are in agreement with. We have included a stipulation letter as part of this application. It's dated May 27th, 2025. Just wanted to highlight a couple of issues, or a couple, not issues, but a couple of items from that stipulation letter that you potentially are used to, but also would be helpful for those who are listening. Number one, this will be a mandatory homeowner association community, and one that includes a leasing restriction of no more than 10%, which is a pretty small number given that the total number of homes proposed is 24. And that's important. When we were early on in the process, there was a good deal of commentary that was out there online that this was going to be subsidized housing, or this was going to be a rental community, and that's not correct at all. This will be primarily owner-occupied, if not totally owner-occupied, and again, there will be a leasing restriction that is included not only as a zoning ordinance, a zoning stipulation, but also to be included in the covenants, and we think that's important. And it's important that this be owner-occupied for us and for sale homes, because we also view this location and certainly this project as one that provides an opportunity for what I call attainable housing as an option for those seeking to buy a home in Cobb County in what is a great location on Powder Springs Road with nearby amenities and nearby shopping and nearby retail that is very convenient and proximate. The remainder of the stipulations and conditions do call for full landscape buffers, as well as full landscaping and fencing appropriately along the street frontages of Powder Springs Road and Wood Meadows to present a very attractive and quality community. That's a project that is fully supported by your future land use plan and comprehensive plan, and fully supported by your staff analysis and staff recommendations, and lastly, fully supported unanimously by the Cobb County Planning Commission for approval. We believe that the opposition that has appeared at this point in time, their complaints and items of concerns are what I call general development concerns, just concerned about development in general, not this project specifically. And a proper basis for denying an application is not simply general development concerns. Those concerns we all share, but those are covered in our Cobb County codes and ordinances and development standards, which address development concerns in a managed, controlled, and regulated manner. And that's how we operate in this county. And that's how most counties and cities operate. And that is that there are constitutional rights to develop property in accordance with the plans, in accordance with the codes and ordinances. And that's all we seek to do here, is to do so with this proposed project. Generalized development concerns, however, are not a basis for denial of an application. I'm here, can answer any questions, as well as representatives of Fort and Cole, which I'm proud to represent. And we very much appreciate your consideration and respectful request your approval of this rezoning application, subject to our stipulation letter, staff comments, and recommendations as well. Thank you.
Now we will hear from the opposition. And just remember, you have 10 minutes collectively.
Good morning. My name is Robert Soroselli, and I have been a resident of Horseshoe Bend for 18 years. Traffic is a significant concern. Powder Springs Road is already operating at full capacity, even without additional developments. It was previously stated that only 9 vehicles would depart from this development daily. However, Cobb County schools are over capacity, necessitating parents to drive their children to other neighborhoods, which was not included in that estimate. The extra strain on infrastructure increases maintenance cost. Also, the additional traffic will delay emergency response times, create safety risk, and raise insurance rates for long-term residents. The commission if we go forward with this rezoning, the commission possesses the authority to request a traffic study. I respectfully request that such a study be conducted. While I support responsible growth, I do not support the rezoning of long-established neighborhoods. Building 24 townhomes on that parcel would have a negative effect on the dynamics of our long-standing community.
Thank you. What? The next speaker? And can you tell us how much time is left on their 10 minutes?
8 minutes and 47 seconds.
Okay.
Good morning. My name is Crystal McDowell, and we are not asking that the property not be developed, but just that it be developed as it was originally planned as single-family homes. This is our community. We would like to keep our community as it is. Beautiful, private, private homes, just a really great, comfortable community, not an overdevelopment. Overdevelopment, once again, will increase the traffic, and who knows what will happen with the water runoff that will affect the homes down below it. So please consider keeping it as a single-family home development, no rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in opposition that wishes to speak?
Greetings. We all realize that we may need more people here in Cobb County. We may need more homes.
Excuse me,
But
ma'am.
there's-
Could you state your name for the record?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Toby Pierce
Thank you.
from Marietta. And the fact that the homes are now limited to 10% doesn't mean that 10 years from now someone won't buy the property and turn it all into a rental area. This would destroy the integrity of the neighborhood. And we are concerned about the traffic. I think a study that says 9 cars a day are going to leave a 26-home area with 2 parking garages in each home is simply unrealistic. If that's based on the national average, we don't really have anything to do with North Dakota or Wyoming or places where they don't have traffic. It's currently very, very difficult to get out of there at all. And it does seem that the people that bought their homes with the expectation that they would have a single-family residence neighborhood are not being considered. Then the fact that we have to have these water runoffs are only because they'll be impermeable air. The entire area will be covered in cement, or if regular were homes there, then regular moisture would be taken away as it should be. I just don't see the justification. I do see the need for more homes. Certainly the property owner should be allowed to develop that. But I just don't see a reason to change the law. I think there's a reasonable expectation for people that bought their homes to not expect the law to change. So I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, ma'am. How much time is left for the?
6 minutes, 30 seconds.
Okay.
Good morning. My name is Stephen Swanson, and I've stood up here a few times in protest of the rezoning of Lot Z7, or Case Z7. But now I stand here with signatures of over 50 of my neighbors. Can I put that under? Stand here with the signatures of over 50 of my neighbors that I've knocked on their doors. These are just the people who have answered the door. Pretty much everybody who answers the door signs the petition, but people have jobs and lives, and they can't come to a Board of Commissioners meeting Monday morning or Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. A lot of them are driving their kids to different schools because our schools are over capacity, and the schools have told you that in their comments, but they are ignored. But I'm just going to go ahead and take a second and read you guys the Cobb County, Georgia Code of Ordinances, Article 6, Tree Preservation and Replacement. Section 50-219, findings, intent, and statements of purpose. Legislative findings. The Board of Commissioners hereby finds and declares that rampant growth and development in certain areas of the county has resulted in the loss of innumerable trees in those areas. Tree roots hold soil in place, and tree photosynthesis converts carbon dioxide into oxygen. Tree loss thus has contributed to dynamically increased soil erosion and sedimentation. High-growth areas where natural green spaces are diminishing have left fewer trees to transform into oxygen and carbon dioxide. Integrated forest canopies reduce the cost of maintenance and other co-located parts of urban infrastructure. Well-managed urban forest resources increase in value and provide benefits to all citizens of the community with respect to air quality, water quality, stormwater management, temperature, amelioration, community aesthetics, and general quality of life. These benefits are crucial to the long-term health, benefit, welfare, and safety of citizens in the community. I'm reading you guys the Cobb County Code of Ordinances. The removal of forest canopy from urban areas of the state and its replacement with more intensive land uses exacts real costs upon the infrastructure, which must be borne by the citizens of the community. Community forests function to benefit the local citizenry as part of the public infrastructure as much as streets, utilities, stormwater management, structures, and sewers. A tree protection law is one part of a dedicated and integrated planning process dealing with land use, impacts of impervious surface, urban hydrology and water quality, air quality, soil erosion, transportation, noise abatement, and wildlife habitat. The Board of Commissioners finds that it is in the best interest of the public to provide standards for the preservation of trees as part of the land development and building construction process for the purpose of making this county a more attractive place to live, providing a healthy living environment, and better maintaining control of stormwater runoff, noise, glare, and soil erosion. Section 50-223, density requirements. While it does say that technically they only need an average density of 15 units per acre, whereas a unit is defined as a self-supporting woody perennial plant which normally obtains a trunk diameter of 2 inches and normally obtains a height of 10 feet at maturity. That's a tree, 2 inches. But listen to this, completely ignored by you guys. Each development shall be evaluated to assess whether all reasonable options have been considered which preserve the maximum amount of existing forest cover. They haven't considered jack. The law does not define canopy. The canopy isn't 10 feet tall. You can't grow a canopy in our lifetimes. Once it's gone, the trees that I plant, my grandkids will see that canopy. There's so much more that needs to be fixed with the law, but in this situation for Z7, we want to protect the law as it sits, protect R15. That's what we all bought into whenever we bought the land near this property, and we live here, we walk by the property. The Georgia Model Urban Forest book, which I've preached to you guys about quite a bit, literally says that whenever people are exposed to stress and then exposed to a commercial setting, that the applicant touts that this development is near, when exposed to a commercial setting versus green space, the commercial space the commercial setting reduces blood pressure and muscle tension slower than green space. In fact, it exacerbates it. Trees help the community live longer, and by allowing them to be cut down, you are killing us.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that wishes to, time is run? Okay, thanks. Okay, well, we'll close the public hearing and turn this over to Commissioner Sheffield, District 4.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I have a series of questions, and I also like staff to address some of the comments that were shared today. But before doing that, I'd like to call Mr. Swanson back. I want to start my question off with you in the event you don't stay for the duration. I just need clarification on your petition because, excuse me, it does not include the address, signature, and email.
Right.
So
I have.
Hold on, I'm not.
Oh, okay.
Let me finish my question. And it also appears that all of the names listed here was written by one individual. If you can just clarify that for me.
Yes, so I have all the other, I have like the actual signatures over on my seat. The reason I wrote them out like this is because it's a whole bunch of different papers, and second, for anonymity, just to help out people, which, if they sign the petition, I'm sure they're fine, me showing it to them, but it just consolidates them here. If you doubt the legitimacy of it, then
But
that's
you
up to
mentioned that you have the signatures at your seat?
Yeah.
Okay, I will ask you to get that, but also, there are a couple of names that I'm recognizing here, and my question is, are any of these names from a Nextdoor post regarding this zoning application?
So there may be like 5,
Okay, okay. And
Most of them are door knocker.
okay, and you mentioned that these are all of your neighbors. Is that accurate?
So in the Horseshoe Bend area, maybe Hicks Road, or because we're right on district lines, sometimes, the District 1, and District 2 will bleed into it, but,
Okay.
because everybody's concerned about it. I've raised a bunch of really good issues, with the trees and stuff.
I understand,
People are opening their eyes.
okay, I'm just going to draw back to this list. And does every name on here, you're confirming that they live in the area?
Yeah.
Okay, every name on here. Okay, so if you wouldn't mind just producing the actual signatures that you have so we can submit into the record, I'd appreciate it.
I don't know if, so they didn't give me permission to put their email addresses and stuff on.
But
Online.
they have
know.
signed it, if you wouldn't mind just showing it so we can all see the benefit of your signatures.
I'm not going to submit this to the
Well, can you pass it so the commissioners can
Yeah,
take
yeah.
a look? Thank you. But if their names are on here, I don't understand what the issue would be in
Well,
showing.
here's the deal is it's a very tense political situation.
But this
and-
has nothing to do with politics.
I know.
If they are opposed to this, then my thought is there would not be any issue with sharing their information. I mean, it's right here on screen for everyone else to
Yeah,
see.
yeah, and anybody could go and look up those names on the tax record.
But the burden is not on us to do that. If they're opposing an application, Commissioner, if you want.
Hey, you can ignore it if you want.
No, it's not that I want to ignore it, but you are introducing this into the record, so I just need some clarifying questions
Okay.
answered, but okay. All right, thank you. We'll get this back to you.
There's a couple of repeats on there, and then other people, maybe 2 or 3, I don't know. But other people, we met them and they just told us that they want to sign it, so we added,
Okay,
I don't.
okay.
If you want to question the legitimacy of it,
I'm not questioning, no.
You can. You
I'm
held a
not
meeting with us.
questioning. Yeah, and I appreciate
And we all told you our concerns, and you're ignoring them.
Hold on, sir.
Okay.
And I appreciate you joining in the community meeting, But when you present something such as this, where you have signatures for opposition that's going to go into the record, then we need clarifying questions.
Okay.
Because when I look at this, this seems to have been written by one individual, so I'm glad you had this as a backup. So, okay. Okay, thank you. And do we need to have a copy of that for the record?
It normally helps.
Yeah. Do you have an extra copy of that?
I don't have a copy of those, but I mean, I just, like, there's email addresses on here and like phone numbers. That's personal information that,
But-
you know, people were giving it to me, you know,
Okay.
to
All
like
right.
help organize. I don't know why you would want that information unless you're trying to retaliate against some
I'm
people.
I'm not
I don't
trying to
know.
retaliate, but again, sir, when you submit signature in opposition, emails are not personal information. I'm not asking for a social security number. But I appreciate your presentation and your opposition, and also you joining the community meeting a few weeks ago. But I don't have any other questions unless you guys have any.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Not being familiar with the street names in Horseshoe Bend, from the list, could you tell what's in that area? With the
Some.
ones that had addresses?
Well, some, but Horseshoe Bend is a sprawling community, so it would take a little research for me to go back and identify each of those. But if you had a copy of that to submit in the record, that would be helpful. But if you choose not to, that's fine.
Hey, I'm gonna actually opt not to, just for anonymity's sake. And, you know, if you want to scrub, whatever I've said about the petitions, then, you know, that's your prerogative, Commissioner.
Okay, all right, thank you for your time, sir. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, was it for the applicant, Commissioner? Oh, okay.
Just a general comment, because I don't think we have a policy as far as documenting where somebody is compared to a rezoning application. And I think it's very worthwhile to bring up in this case, because we had an applicant, or I'm sorry, we had a person in the audience raise their hand in support that we know from public comment that was made a week ago does not live in this area. So I think we need to be very careful that if we're going to be critical of opposition and their proximity to this development, then we need to be equally critical of those that raise their hand in favor of the application when they no longer, or when they do not reside within the area as well. And again, I appreciate neighborhood involvement, because you're right, it is how we shape the community. But I think we need to be careful of how much we get hooked up on signatures, because again, we have neighbors here, they've expressed their concerns, people have sent in, their letters, et cetera, et cetera. So this conversation concerns me a little bit, because we're being very critical of signatures in opposition, but we're not being as critical of those who came in support that do not live in the area as well.
Well, if I can address that, it's not a question of criticism, because I'm not being critical, but when you have someone that submit signatures, which appears to be been written by one single person, and when I asked as a follow-up, as I should, because if a person is going to sign something in opposition, if you're going to sign a petition, what you're also agreeing to is that information being shared. So I asked for that information, as I should have, for the record. Now, with respect to being critical of someone that's in support, it's not about criticism at all. It's not about that at all. And if there's someone here that's in support of an application and they speak in support of the application, at that point, there would be additional questions as to where that person may live in opposition or in proximity to that location. Part of the reason for the general public in my questioning is this application, there was discussion on social media about this application being a primarily rental unit. That discussion was initiated by someone that does not only live in the area, but lives completely outside of the district on the other side of Cobb County. And that's their right to be engaged, right? Because we're all Cobb County citizens. But the issue that I have is when you purposely put out misinformation to incite people, to anger people, that's where I have a problem. That's where I have a problem. So that's why I dug deeper into the signatures for this particular petition. So I'd like to address some of the comments regarding DOT, stormwater. Stormwater, I'll hold you off for last because I have several questions for stormwater. But I will ask John if you can provide context or address the comment made regarding changing the law. There was a comment with respect to not changing the law, but based on the future land use, this is MDR. But if you can talk to that a little bit and also address the tree protection ordinance. There's a desire for this to remain R15, and I believe R15 is not required to have a landscape buffer. Is that accurate?
There would be a buffer during development for R15.
Okay. Okay. If you can just touch on those other areas, or perhaps maybe even Debbie can, since it was a legal reference.
Okay, and, the first thing I'll touch on is the tree ordinance that Mr. Swanson read from. A lot of that stuff that he read, it comes directly from the tree ordinance, which is a development code. It's not a zoning code. We normally don't use that in zoning decisions. Cobb County has one of the best tree codes in the state. In fact, we were the first metro county 30 years ago to hire a county arborist and to institute a tree plan or a tree ordinance. So our tree ordinance is pretty strict. It does require some recompense, tree save areas. It does dictate what you can place back into buffers. The county arborist, county landscape architect normally like to see evergreens replanting because they're green year-round. And they normally like to see hardwood overstory trees like oaks and maples put back in lieu of more decorative trees like Japanese maples or cryptomerias or things like that, or fruit and nut trees, because the hardwood overstory trees are longer living trees that provide buffer over time. So what Mrs. Swanson read, I think, was directly out of the tree ordinance.
Okay, thank you. If I can have DOT approach to,
Commissioner-
I'm sorry. Sorry.
Since we're talking about the tree ordinance, John, just if we can go into a little bit more of an education mode here for just a second. So the county also in the ordinance has, I'm going to say penalties for developers that if they remove a hardwood, tree, that they then have to go back and plant more trees than what they had originally had, because the survey has to be done and that's all noted, that it has to then be additional plantings being added back. I know one of the things that my constituents get upset about is pine trees. The pine trees are not really addressed in our ordinance, and they're not looked at something to be protected or saved, such as the hardwoods. Did I do okay saying that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Was there a second part to your question, Commissioner Sheffield?
No. No. He asked if it was a second part to my question to him, and there is not. I'd like for DOT to approach.
Well, and the question about changing the law, I think they're talking about the rezoning.
Yeah, I think he addressed that with the development. Hi, Amy.
Hi, Amy Diaz, DOT.
Can you address the comments regarding the traffic issues? I believe those were concerns of Mr. Sawyer.
Yes, so the thing that's been called into question is the trip generation information that we provide for all zoning cases for the board's information on what kind of trips a particular development site plan is expected to generate. These are single-family attached homes, which have a slightly different trip generation profile than single-family detached homes, which y'all are more familiar with me getting up here and talking about. There is a lower trip generation rate for attached homes than detached. What he was referencing as far as school children is, I was asked to kind of explain that a little bit the last time I was called on to speak about this. And it is not given from the national exactly why the trip generation rates are different, but I hypothesize that it could be that townhomes tend to have smaller families, less families, just because of the nature of the people that buy townhomes versus buy detached homes. That is not documented. That is my supposition as a traffic engineer. What I do have documented is this is a national rate. He called into question where they were from. I actually looked that up while I was waiting. The locations, British Columbia, California, Georgia, Illinois, Maryland, Massachusetts, Minnesota, New Jersey, Ontario, Oregon, Pennsylvania, South Dakota, Utah, Virginia, and Wisconsin. So it is a very big cross-section of potential land uses that they've done 134 studies in the AM generation rate that's being called into question. So this is why we use the national rates, is because they do have a number of studies to give us information to make engineering quantitative judgments for the board.
Okay. And can, excuse me, pardon me, can you share why this proposal does not rise to the level of a traffic study submittal?
Certainly. So for rezoning, the lowest thresholds for traffic study rezonings is 75 trips during a peak hour or 750 trips during a day. So pulling up the trip generation expected for this development, we have 11 total trips in the in the AM, 14 in the PM, and 173 all day. So this is well below the threshold for traffic studies in our zoning code.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Let me just see if there were any other questions that were shared in opposition that we can address.
I will offer to you, even if it was 24 detached homes, it would not meet the thresholds that I just mentioned. It would be below those.
It would be below?
It would be below the 75 during a peak hour and 750 during a day. It would be closer to 24 and 240, so still well below the threshold.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Does anyone have questions for Amy?
Thank you.
Andrew. Let me get my comments.
Good
Hello,
morning.
Andrew.
Andrew Heath, Cobb Stormwater Management.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good. So I reviewed again last night your comments regarding, let me just get the property addresses here. Hold on. With your comments, your topo comments in particular, item number 2, where you reference runoff at addresses 2250, 2251, 2261, and 2271. For clarification, with the runoff, was that pre or post-construction or both? Your concerns?
Yeah, of course, in looking at the properties now, I would be surprised if those homeowners don't have some drainage concerns the way it is now, just because a significant amount of runoff, not only from this development, but also in looking at the GIS image there on the screen, if you can see that, there's another existing shopping center immediately north of this that has a little detention pond that also sort of discharges onto those same lots. So in the pre-developed condition that is right now, I would expect those homeowners probably do have some undesirable drainage on their property. And so in the post-developed condition, we're, and this side and what's being proposed is 2 detention ponds. One, especially in this area where you're talking about, those lots are all there in that very northwestern corner of the subdivision, right off that northwestern corner of where the site is. And so there would be a detention pond that's proposed there to try to mitigate that runoff onto those lots. But the water still, even if it's detained and slowed, it still has to drain off and go downstream onto those lots. And so one of the things that I had written in my comment, and I heard the representative for the applicant speak, that, you know, there is consideration given to, and my thought, and I think my comments envision this, is that there probably is going to need to be some sort of pipe system, if that can be worked out with the neighbors next door. Of course, it would require their permission naturally to work on their property, but kind of the ideal solution would be to have some sort of pipe system that could convey that runoff directly from the detention pond down to that receiving drainage system on the opposite side of those homes. And if we could do that, that would go a long ways toward, I think, relieving their drainage issues. Of course, we can wish for anything we want. That would naturally require some of those homeowners to agree to have work done on their property, assuming that the applicant, you know, was willing to do that work as well. I heard the applicant make some affirming comments that they're willing to, you know, work with those neighbors next door. So if the neighbors next door are agreeable to that, then I think there's a good solution there to help that water get through and between those homes, so that after the development is completed, those homeowners could be in a much better condition from a drainage standpoint, because that could really not only handle the post-development runoff, but it could really correct, like I say, probably what I consider to be some pre-development conditions there as well.
Okay. And with your recommendation number 6, and that's under the special conditions, where you speak to over-detain, it may be necessary to over-detain the post-development flow rates. Would that solution be similar to what you described with the piping underneath on the adjacent properties?
Yes, and that's something that would kind of work hand in hand with that solution. I don't know for sure, but those homes that you mentioned, in their front yard, there are several pipes kind of in series there that convey this runoff. Once it makes its way through these lots, those pipe systems convey that runoff away. And I don't know what the capacity of those pipe systems are. They might be under capacity as it is right now in the pre-development condition. And so if that's the case, to not overburden those pipes in the post-development condition, depending upon, you know, and we would evaluate this more in detail during the plan review process. But if those pipe systems were found to be undersized, if you will, or they didn't have capacity, then one way we could correct that would be to over-detain the flows, that is, hold back basically more flow and release less water, kind of like reducing the flow out of a faucet. Don't let as much water come out. And then that could help those pipes to operate better and not see as much runoff. At this point, we haven't really done that detailed level of analysis yet, but that might be a tool, like in our toolbox, so to speak, to try and correct that problem, you know, during plan review.
Okay. And just a question of clarification, how do you control the flow? You mentioned that you can kind of adjust it like you would a faucet, but in this scenario, how would you control that?
Right. So in the pond that they build there, there will be an outlet control structure in the pond that will have some system of orifices that are like holes in the structure, or weirs are the normal way to do it. A weir is kind of a slot, you might say, cut in the structure. And the size of those, or the number of those, and the position of those can be rearranged so that you release the water more slowly. Like, for instance, let's say you had one hole that was going to be 6 inches in diameter. If you wanted to release less flow, maybe you'd make it 4 inches in diameter. Then not as much flow can go out. And you could model the pond that way. So the pond would take longer to drain. So that way the same amount of flow is going to go downstream, but you're just going to let it be released over a much longer period of time. So.
Okay. Okay, I think that was all I had for Andrew. And with your special condition number 3, just for clarification, you mentioned that it would be a long-term nuisance. Is that a reference to the properties that are downstream?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Right, and so the nuisance of that, ironically, we can put in a detention pond to control the rate of runoff and reduce that flow, But the converse of that is that if we hold that water back and release it more slowly, we now have to release it over a longer period of time.
Right.
So after the rain is over, the homeowners may now not see runoff, but
Right.
after the rain is over, they may still see a little trickle of runoff continuing. So that can be kind of a nuisance to a property owner.
Right.
But if it went into a pipe system, then they wouldn't see that. So that would be an advantage there. So.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yep.
Does anyone else have questions for Andrew?
So Andrew, if I'm hearing you correctly and reading the comments, there is no drainage easement for water on 2250 or 2251?
There is a drainage easement, and I guess in that era, in maybe the late 70s, they frequently recorded drainage easements around the perimeter of the property, whether water actually flowed there or not. I guess they just thought that was a belt and suspenders approach to placing the drainage easement. Where the water primarily wants to flow, it appears from GIS. I haven't actually physically visited those lots, but it appears it wants to try to, at least in part, make its way sort of between the homes where there isn't really a recorded drainage easement. So the pipe system that we talked about, if that's a good option, potentially it could be located within that existing drainage easement. But of course, some of that is going to have to be dependent upon the downstream homeowners and where they might want that to be constructed and what fits, physically best with the site. But there is to answer your question directly, there is a drainage easement there. How applicable it is right now, the way things operate right now is, I think some water flows in it in some areas and some areas it doesn't, so.
So just to follow up on that, so the developer would possibly be able to install the pipes in the current drainage easement, correct?
Potentially, yes.
To get it to the final location where we know there's an existing drain. Is there a way that if they choose not to and they just assume it's going to flow this way and it doesn't, and it then again, like you were saying, puts additional water flowing onto these properties for a longer period of time, will that be addressed?
Yes, and that's what we would have to work out during plan review. That's something that we would definitely want to require of the developer, is to try to make some direct connection there between those two. I guess the big outstanding thing, and I heard the representative for the applicant say they were kind of amenable to doing that, but a bigger outstanding question is those downstream homeowners, are they willing to work with us? Like working in that drainage easement might require like some trees, for instance, in the drainage easement to be removed, or maybe some, play yard or playground equipment or something like that. I'm just making that up, might have to be moved. Now, in the longer term, it would be a much better situation, but assuming that we could work all that out, that would be definitely what we would require in plan review, yeah.
I do have one follow-up question. It was a comment shared regarding runoff, and if this property was developed as a single-family residential, that it will not have any runoff, or it will be minimal runoff. I don't want to mince the speaker's words, but can you address that?
Yeah, the property is now zoned, if I remember, R15 now. And so without any zoning, it could be developed under the R15 code. So the site is largely wooded now and in a natural state. And so naturally, when it's developed into an R15 type development, if the developer decided to go that way, then there would be an increased runoff from that situation, and they would need their own detention system, something pretty similar to what's being proposed here now. So either way, you're going to have, increased runoff, and either way, we're going to have to figure out how to handle that. So, yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions for Andrew? No? Okay. Thank you, Andrew. Kevin, I'd like for you to approach, just have a couple of questions. Well, thank you for attending the community online meeting. I think we had a few weeks ago to address some of the concerns of the residents. And again, I thank you all who were on the call for joining us. But you mentioned in your presentation that about your willingness to follow the recommendations or adopt the recommendations of stormwater, right? But my question is, has there been any contact or meetings with the homeowners at the addresses that we mentioned earlier on Rock Creek Drive?
Our outreach to the adjoining neighbors consists of the notice letters that we sent them. And if we could, he had a visual up for you that actually showed and identified where those existing drainage easements in favor of Cobb County are located, which I think might be helpful for us. Because when we get to final design and engineering and final hydrology, which is extremely expensive, I mean, that's why that comes at that point in time and not at this time, as Mr. Heath was explaining. We do not have to go to Rock Creek. That's an option for where we could tie into an existing drainage easement. There's also a drainage easement that's along our western boundary that we could utilize as well. And you see that on your screen now, where those gray bands are actually identifying drainage easements that are in favor of Cobb County for this area. And so there's two different directions that we can go in order to provide for appropriate stormwater drainage and installation of pipes to ensure that that occurs correctly, as Mr. Heath has stated. We are in agreement with Stormwater's comments and recommendations that regardless of how this property is being developed, like Mr. Heath just said, you're going to need to make sure those stormwater concerns are addressed and properly handled. We cannot, and we're not allowed to simply develop it and throw additional water over on somebody's property. It cannot just run wherever it runs at that point. It has to be within an established system, within an established easement, going to an established location. And you can see with these gray bands, we have multiple areas that we can go to make those adjustments, depending on what works best and what works best for those area property owners. I mean, as Mr. Heath said, we feel like we can actually improve whatever their situation is now going forward. But that's where we are today, is we have those options available to us, but we're in agreement that with stormwater that it needs to be handled in that manner. So that would mean we couldn't go forward, excuse me.
No, go ahead.
That would mean we couldn't go forward unless we were able to do that
Right.
at that junction.
Right, but based on stormwater comments and Andrew's testimony, this would also be an option to run the piping, I think, was at the front of the properties on Rock Creek Drive. That is also an option.
As you can see
Based
on the
on
screen,
stormwater's comments.
yes, that would be an option if through the existing drainage easement that is there is an option, yes.
Okay, all right.
Along with the option of running it, keeping it solely to the rear of properties and then back to Wood Meadows.
Okay. Do you all have any questions for Kevin? No? Okay. Okay. What I'd like to do is hold this for 30 days, Kevin, to make contact with the owners at 2250, 2251, 2261, and 2271 Rock Creek Drive, and to have a meeting with the homeowners, the developer, and stormwater, to have those conversations regarding the option of having piping on their property in the event through site review, the other two options aren't as viable. I think they should be made aware. So I'd like to make a motion to hold Z7 2025 to the July 15th Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. During that time, the applicant will meet with the downstream property owners of 2250, 2251, 2261, and 2271 Rock Creek Drive and stormwater management to determine the best course to mitigate runoff on their properties. That concludes my motion, but I'll also add that I'm hopeful that we can come to a resolution on this one. This property, I received requests in the past, just for the homeowners that live in the area, requests for convenience stores, fast food restaurants, and the like. So I think in keeping it residential is what I'm hearing from most, is just the preference to have it as a single-family residence, which I understand. But there has also been proposals for commercial properties, including a development, including a gas station. So I'm glad to see that at least this is residential, so we'll just try and work out the details on the front end. So that's my motion.
Second.
Oh, I should have shared that. Saved that for
Any
discussion. I'm
discussion?
sorry. I should have saved that.
I do have a question for Commissioner Sheffield.
Yeah.
Would we might want to hold until August? We do have the July 4th holiday coming up, and I know people often travel. And is that going to put constraints on you that you might not be aware of to meet with that many homeowners?
I don't think that it would. I mean, they're 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, they're pretty much right next door to each other, so it's not like he has to convene like an entire community. So I think we'll be able to get it done in July.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Call the question. 4-0.
Okay, next case is rezoning case Z10 of 2025, the Revive Land Group LLC. Request rezoning from R20 to RSL for a residential senior living subdivision in land lots 498, 538, 539, 572, and 613 of the 19th District. The property is located on the south side of Macklin Road, the east side of Hopkins Road, and the north side of John Petrie Road. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z10? Two? Okay, let the record show there's 2 people here opposed to rezoning case Z10. All those, and can I get a show of people here who are in support of rezoning case Z10? Please stand and raise your hands. 3, okay. Let the record show there's 3 people here in support. All those who would like to speak for or against, please come forward to be sworn in.
I don't need to point this anywhere, do I? I don't need to point it anywhere. Just go. Yeah, awesome.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioners, again, I'm Kevin Moore here on behalf of the applicant, Revive Land Group, in this application for rezoning, along with the assemblage of property owners. For this property that's located off of Macklin Road, but primarily along Hopkins Road, also having frontage on John Petrie Road. This property consists of just over 53 acres. And is proposed for a rezoning to your residential senior living, or RSL category, for development now of a maximum of 114 homes, forgive me, 114 homes. That's been reduced since this application was initially submitted. This application is for a total of 114 homes with a net density of 2.4 units per acre. A little bit about this particular application to RSL, and I just want to highlight for a couple of items for you. We kind of hear this all the time, but I think it's good information always for you as a board to hear about what's going on, not only in the housing environment, but in the population environment. Specifically, when we're coming forward requesting a residential senior living project, which is age restricted to those over 55 and above, I think it's important to note a couple of things. First, nationally, come 2034, according to the U.S. Census, or by that time, for the first time in U.S. history, we'll have more people over the age of 64 in this country than we will have under the age of 18. That's an amazing statistic when you think about it. For the first time in our country, that's what's going to happen within a very short amount of time in terms of our population growth and in terms of the graying of our population. And that's important simply because as we get older as a country, then housing options need to expand as well. And in particular, I want to draw your attention to Cobb County. And let's take that down from just a national level to our particular county. And when you look at the senior population in our county, by 2050, we'll have 2.5 times more, almost 3 times more seniors in Cobb County than we do today by 2050. Almost 146,000 more seniors population by 2050 than we do today. And so you can see what's happening. And that's not just a national statistic, it's one that's happening right here in Cobb County. And in terms of providing what I said, in terms of senior options, that is options for housing for a very specific segment of our housing market. What do they want to see? They have to have options just like anybody else. And when you review just Cobb County today, if you just pull up all the housing types in terms of the total number of listings for all housing types in a price range of $400,000 to $800,000, there's 1,619 total listings. Of that, ranch homes, which would be the only really homes appropriate for a specific market segment that is looking for housing that is for them, and that would be ranch homes for a senior market. There's only 238 listings. So you can see in terms just of Cobb County today, the options for ranch homes as a senior product is one that is fairly limited in terms of the overall market supply. And I think that's just good information. We all know that we have dealt with and are continuing to deal with certain housing issues, but there's housing issues across the different segments. As to our specific proposal, the Cobb County Future Land Use Map designates this property as low-density residential. Our initial application was for 120 homes. We have reduced that now to 114 homes, and I'll go through some of that, so that now our proposed density is 2.4 units per acre. Even though RSL is a supported category and allows up to 5 units per acre, and even though per the RSL ordinance, it doesn't set a precedent in terms of land use, and per your future land use map, it doesn't set a precedence, we have made that decision to go to 2.4 units per acre so that we're not only compliant with your RSL code, but also compliant with your future land use map. The overall project itself, this is oriented with Macklin Road to the far left and Hopkins Road along the bottom. You can see this project and proposed development in an RSL style has multiple locations where we've included pocket parks, and intentionally also we do have some lakes and ponds. There's one larger pond, sometimes referred to as Phillips Lake, that's in the top right, but also the other ponds that are adjacent or a part of our property where we've been able to preserve with this plan over 17 acres that will not be disturbed, so that we can be sure that we are protecting the streams, the ponds, and the lakes that are a part of this property and adjacent to this property. And I think those are both very important to note. In addition, as it relates to Phillips Lake in the top right-hand corner, we've taken extra care as part of our overall design and process through these conversations that we've had with our neighbors and with our community, where our plans have changed, where all of our stormwater will be managed and held on site before being released, as opposed to using Phillips Lake as a stormwater detention or stormwater management feature, which helps to keep Phillips Lake I will call it in the same condition. So we're not using it for our stormwater management. We're using our own property for stormwater management. In addition, we made other changes to our plan that included reducing the total number, but in very specific intentional areas, so that we were able to reduce the total number of homes in areas that where wetlands could possibly have been impacted. That was important to the community as well. And so we were able to make those changes and thereby remove any chance of impacting certain wetland areas as requested by the community. Also, as part of this plan, we have gone through a full traffic study, even though not required. That traffic study ultimately became accepted by DOT. We have had multiple conversations and meeting with DOT so that we could understand each other and make sure that what we were agreeing to and what DOT was recommending was consistent, and we could all be supportive of that. Yesterday, I sent a supplemental letter stating that we were in agreement with DOT's most recent revised comments, which were dated as of yesterday. And I just want to highlight one item from that. What had been identified through our traffic study is the intersection of Hopkins Road and Macklin Road. That intersection suffers from a low level of service. Even though our project was not going to reduce that level of service, even though there's an existing problem there, that intersection could very much use a dedicated right-hand turn lane to help with traffic flow, especially in the AM peak hours. As part of that, DOT had recommended we consider a contribution of $35,000 for that project, even though it's off our property, off-site, and even though our project is not going to cause the problem that's existed. We want to be helpful to the community, and we have agreed to do that as part of our stipulations and as part of our agreement now with DOT in agreement with their recommendations and comments. Also, as part of this site plan, we do, and I want to highlight for you, we do have a very robust amenity, active amenity, along with the other pocket parks and passive amenities that we have that include clubhouse, resort pools, pickleball courts, dog parks, community gathering areas, and structures, all part and all designed specifically to meet the needs of the senior population that would be residing here. Also, and lastly, just wanted to show you a couple of the types of houses so that you can see the types of homes that would be senior type homes designed specifically to meet your RSL code, which means master bedrooms on the main floor and all the master living areas on the main floor, stepless entry. And there's a lot of things that go with building under the RSL category so that you can have attractive options such as that we're showing you here. This project at this point, we have gone through, like I said previously, or at least implied, a very robust community meeting. It was one organized by Commissioner Sheffield that was highly productive in meeting with adjacent neighbors and go through their concerns one by one. And we were able to do that. And I want to really praise the applicant, Revive Land Group, who was able to really engage in that process and engage meaningfully with substantive material changes and also addressing those concerns individually as well. We believe we positioned this application and project in such a way that after we left that meeting, I received personally, the applicant's representative, Neville Allison, also received separate messages and phone calls of support from those involved, saying they appreciated us meeting, appreciated the efforts of the commissioner in bringing everybody together to go through this project. And I think that has been extremely helpful. We've worked through the issues that, with DOT to the point that we're now in complete agreement with their recommendations and comments. And I think that's very important as well. Lastly, we think this project is excellent for this location. It's excellent given the developer and the neighbors and how we've been able to get along to this point to provide for a great project, a great neighborhood, and a great community for Cobb County. I can answer any questions you may have. Our project engineer and applicant representative are here as well, and happy to answer questions and respectfully request your approval of this application consistent with now staff's recommendation for approval and the Planning Commission's recommendation for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Any opposition that would like to speak? I think we had 2 in opposition. And
everybody.
I'm sorry, you have 10 minutes collectively.
Okay. Don't take up too
And
much of your time.
tell us your name.
Yeah. My name is Fred Chumley, Cobb County resident, born and raised. I'm a contractor, GC, family-owned company for over 50 years in construction. So I understand, most aspects of all building and what can be affected by building. And I've seen great developments. I've seen really bad developments. My property is directly next to this development that's proposed. I own a portion of the lake. It's Phillips Lake, as we've been calling it. Joe and Bonnie have been across the lake now for, I think, 40 to 50 years. They've seen a lot of new owners, a lot of different things happen. But the lake has relatively stayed pretty much the same. I mean, we've had a few developments that have happened on the north side over off Mackland that have caused some runoff, and on the north end of our lake is silted up because of that. And we also have some issues with the standpipe. The owners of the property on the proposed plan knocked down the standpipe that allows the water to flow out evenly instead of overflowing on the spillway. That's a major concern on my part due to erosion. I've been there about 10 years now, and I've seen a considerable amount of erosion during heavy rains. It's a pretty big river that comes down there. The water doesn't disperse correctly. The standpipe is not working. So we're going to have to come up with some plan to rectify that standpipe and drain correctly in our lake. I know that, we've gone over some areas where they're going to be, storing water and dispersing it slowly into our lake, and I appreciate that, and I hope that we can stick by that plan and do a good job at that. Not overflowing into our lake and silting it up, and I appreciate that we can monitor that and make sure it's done correctly. They state that the water table is not going to change, but once again, I hope that it doesn't. It's a beautiful place that we live at. My family and I lived there a long time, and we hope to stay there another, 20, 30 years if possible. It's been nice, peaceful, and, private, I should say. My driveway is 1,000 feet long. We bought that property because of privacy. They'll be building roughly about 70 feet from my house on my top side. Their cul-de-sac is being built pretty close to my home, and I've requested some type of berm be made or some, I know that we've got some, in the planning, we're going to do some plants and shrubs or trees, but privacy is also big for me on that side. So I bring these points up. I met with Heath yesterday. We walked the dam, and he said the dam's in decent shape, and I think that moving forward we'll have to come up with a plan. There's 3 people that own the lake. It's me, the Phillips, and the owners of this property. And moving forward, we have to come up with a plan, whether it's working on the spillway, working on the standpipe, and also maintaining the dam. Since I've lived there, we haven't had access to maintain the portion of the dam, and there's growth. There's trees on the dam. So moving forward, I'd like to come up with a plan. I've spoke with the developers on that. They're for it. So once again, I just hope that we stand by that and, we come up with a good plan to rectify and make sure that everything stays the same, so to speak. It's a beautiful place, and we love it. So those are my points. Those are my points.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you guys listening to me.
Is there, well, you can't. Anyone else that wanted to speak in opposition? Did Kevin have any time left?
He did not.
Okay, because there were some in support, but, okay. Okay, so the public hearing portion is closed, and I'll turn things over to Commissioner Sheffield.
Thank you. Mr. Chumley, would you approach, please? It's good to see you again, and thank you for joining the community meeting. If you would, can you guys give him a pointer so he can point to his property on this map?
I think he's 2720.
He's 2720.
2720 on this lot right here.
Okay, I just wanted people to orient themselves with where your property is located in relation to this parcel.
That's correct. So as you see, the dam is split into thirds. Standpipe is right there where your mouse was at, right about there. So we really don't have access in repairing it, so, we'll come up with a plan. See
Okay,
what we can
thank
do.
you. I just needed for you to point that
Yeah.
out, because otherwise it's additional testimony, so.
I hear you.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. That's all I have for now, unless you guys have questions for him. No? Okay.
Thank you.
Andrew?
Andrew Heath, Cobb Stormwater Management. Oh, that's better. Can you hear me better?
Thank you for meeting Mr. Chumley and I believe the Phillips yesterday. And I'm not sure if you have the photos that you've taken at the property during your visit,
Yeah.
because I'd really like to show it to.
Okay, yeah, I do. Let me just grab it.
Okay, all right, thank you. So while he's looking for that, he walked the property yesterday with the adjacent homeowners for additional assessment of the dam, and he has some photos in his assessment that I'd like him to share with us.
Okay, yeah, while he's getting those on there, I appreciate you meeting with the community recently and talking to the community members there, and particularly providing me the contact information for Mr. Chumley. And so I was able to contact Mr. Chumley, and the Phillips had contacted me previously, so we were able to get together actually just yesterday afternoon at the site. And that was the first time I'd ever actually been able to walk over the dam and investigate that with Mr. Chumley and Mr. Phillips, and have a look at that. And let's see.
I'm sorry, if we can go back to the first page and just have him walk us through the photos. Yeah, thank you.
There we go. So this is, a moment ago when we were looking at the GIS mapping, you could see Mr. Chumley's property is on the west side of the dam. So if we were standing on Mr. Chumley's property looking at the dam, this is what we would see here. That kind of green line that's going out away from you there, looking like into the lake, that's the top of the dam. And Mr. Chumley has kept his side of the dam kind of mowed off. You can see where there's not a lot of growth on the dam, and approximately where the property line is about where you see that taller vegetation kind of in the middle of the dam there. And so the applicant's property is kind of an unusually shaped property because it's an assemblage of properties, and there's sort of you might call it a flag-shaped lot that is the applicant's property that comes right down sort of through the center of the lake, and then it expands out just a little bit where the dam is, and then continues on down south to John Petrie Road. So that makes this dam a little bit unusual in that you have sort of three owners, primarily Mr. Chumley and the applicant, and then also the Phillips on the far side of the dam, which is in the far side of this photograph, the top photograph, on a little bit of the far side of the dam. So I was able to walk over the dam and the property there with Mr. Chumley yesterday and Mr. Phillips, and kind of have a look at that. Although on this site, the applicant has stated, and that's a good thing, that they'll be managing their stormwater requirements actually on their site. So they're not going to need to use this lake for detention purposes or to try to achieve some stormwater benefit. That said, the applicant's property kind of extends down, as I say, sort of unusually through the center of the lake and incorporates part of the dam. And so when we walked over the dam, we noted some things about the dam, and this is not, I hate to say it, is not uncommon for a lot of earthen embankment dams in the county. Exactly when this dam was constructed, I don't know. It's been present for a long time. There's some pretty well-established vegetation on the dam, so I know it's been there for many, many decades. In the second photograph, or that lower photograph of the screen there, the way the dam would operate, there would be a primary spillway through the dam, which is basically a pipe, you might say, that would stick up into the lake. Water from the lake would go into that, go through a pipe through the dam, and come out on the low side of the dam. That spillway in the lake is no longer visible, so it's either rusted and fallen over, or for whatever reason, it's just not visible anymore. So likely that outlet, that primary outlet from the lake, is no longer really functional. If you walk around to the low side of the dam, there's just a little trickle of water coming out that outlet pipe. So there's a little water seeping through it, but because not much water can go out that outlet pipe, the level of the lake has sort of risen in elevation. And this image here is the sort of what you might call the auxiliary spillway. It's where water would flow out of the lake, usually only in a larger storm event. So if we had a bigger storm event that primary spillway couldn't carry, then this spillway that we see here, and it's a little hard to see in that photograph, but that you can sort of see a little area of water there that's flowing across the top of the dam there, and that's where water is leaving the lake now. And you can maybe tell from the photograph, yesterday afternoon was a beautiful afternoon. It wasn't raining, hadn't rained in maybe a day or so. So it certainly wasn't a flooding event. So really, you wouldn't expect to see water flowing over that auxiliary spillway on a day like that. That auxiliary spillway should really only be activated, like I say, more in a storm type event. If you want to roll on, you can go to that next one if you want. So where water goes over that auxiliary spillway, because the primary spillway is really not functional anymore, most of the water that comes into the lake now goes out through that auxiliary spillway, which you could see in that previous photograph, flows through the auxiliary spillway, and then when it gets to the backside of the dam, it drains away. And where it gets to the backside of the dam, the slope of that spillway was probably steeper at one time, and the erosion there has greatly accelerated, so that top photograph is showing you that kind of back on the rear side of the dam, a hole has formed there where water has eroded out from previous storm events. And here, that top photograph, we're standing on the dam right beside the auxiliary spillway, looking behind the dam and looking at that eroded hole. And it's barely possible to see, but Mr. Chumley's driveway is barely visible in the background of that top photograph. But if we walked around from the dam and we walked down Mr. Chumley's driveway, we would see, looking back at the dam, we would see that second photograph at the bottom, where now we're looking back toward the dam. And if you kind of zoom in on that, it may not be possible to zoom in, but you can actually see the end of that emergency spillway, and the water just kind of, there's a little waterfall there where it's kind of eroded out that hole, and water is just kind of spilling off there behind the dam. And that's, obviously not a good condition. That's an erosion issue there that's taking place. And really the driving factor there is that primary spillway isn't really functional anymore now. And so all of the water's having to come over that emergency spillway that you can see in that photograph. And if you want to, you can go on.
Before you flip the page, if you can stay there, the photos, can you identify which property this is on?
Yes, so here we're standing on Mr. Chumley's driveway in this photograph, and we're looking back, kind of back northeast toward the dam. And so we're standing on Mr. Chumley's property, kind of like beside his driveway, looking back toward the lake.
Okay, so you're on his driveway, but is this, the photos that we're looking at here, is that on his property?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And this is a little bit difficult to see. In the middle of the dam, which is approximately where the primary spillway would have been in the lake and where the outlet pipe comes through the dam, that portion of the dam really hasn't been well maintained, and it's pretty grown up pretty heavily in vegetation. And so it's a little difficult to see, but sort of in the center of this photograph, I tried to circle in red. You can see sort of a horizontal shape sticking out, and that's the end of that outlet pipe that's coming out on the downstream side of the dam. And you can barely see, there's just a little dribble of water dribbling out the bottom of that pipe. So there's a little bit of leakage that's getting into the pipe, but really not much. This is on the portion of the dam here that, as best I can tell, this is not on Mr. Chumley's property. This is on the applicant's property in that kind of center, say 50% of the dam that the applicant owns. And this pipe is on the applicant's property here. And so these features that are part of this dam, because the applicant will be managing their runoff on their site, they'll be controlling their rate of runoff into the lake, but the applicant actually still owns this fraction of the dam. Now, it's still their property. And in the future, that piece of property would presumably be owned by the homeowners association. And, you know, a difficulty with this site is that there isn't really a good way for the HOA to access this piece that's going to be their property in the future, unless really the most convenient access would be to go up Mr. Chumley's driveway, which of course is his private property. And so that creates an issue of how do we, you know, in the future, how is maintenance going to be taken care of on the dam and addressed on the dam? But these are some, you know, deficiencies that we noted in the dam yesterday in our site visit.
So with the email, and thank you for following up with me last night, there was some recommendations from the stormwater point of view. Can you just share those with us and give a little more detail?
So really to return the dam to a good functional position, you know, and improve its stability, if nothing were done, that erosion issue there at that auxiliary spillway is not likely to stop on its own. It's likely just to continue slowly progressing toward the lake, and then eventually the lake will probably just drain on its own through that widened spillway, and then there won't be a lake there anymore. But to address that, really the primary spillway here, which is on the applicant's property, that really should be replaced and made functional again, and that would be the portion of the lake's outlet system that would really carry the water. So most of the time, water would only go through this system and not through the auxiliary spillway. And then a secondary thing to be done is that auxiliary spillway, where you saw it was eroded, that obviously needs a little repair work done to it, to restore it. And then, of course, with dams in general, it's not good to have big vegetation growing up on the dams, because eventually those trees will die or they'll fall over, and when that happens, it generally just destabilizes the dam. And so usually for the dam itself, we like to keep that, you know, pretty much clean, not clean of any vegetation. There's a little low vegetation that you saw in that first photograph that were some sort of aquatic plants and things like that. That doesn't need to be removed, but I'm talking about bigger woody vegetation, trees that are on the dam and on the backside of the dam. That would be, you know, removed so that the dam would then be easier to access, it'd be easier to inspect, and it would be easier to maintain, you know, going down the road. So.
Okay. And you had another image of the GIS map. Do you have that on your?
Yes, I think that's the last one.
Okay.
Yeah, see if that. This one may be a little bit too large for the viewer. This is very similar to what we saw earlier. I made this little exhibit just to try to help maybe kind of visualize where we are and what we're looking at. Here, this image is actually oriented just north and south. So the top of the sheet is north, the bottom of the sheet is south, just like you would normally look at it. The road that you see kind of arcing along that lower right side is John Petrie Road. And it's a little difficult to see, but Mr. Chumley's driveway passes through a wooded area, and I tried to highlight its approximate location in those two parallel black lines that are over on sort of the left side of the sheet. And it runs from down at John Petrie Road up along the left side of the dam. Yep, there where that's being pointed out. So with respect to back up to the lake itself, of course, naturally, before there was any lake there was just a stream, and the lake was formed by creating the dam, which the dam in this case is an earthen dam, so it's just soil that's piled up perpendicular to the stream that forms the dam that backs up the water. In this photograph, right in the middle of the dam, you see that yellow line? That is approximately where that outlet pipe comes from, some point in the lake where it's no longer visible, where it really is seen, and then it comes to the low side of the dam where he was just pointing at there. And on the low side of the dam is where we saw that pipe sticking out a minute ago, where I was showing you that. The water drains or it would drain from that primary spillway, sort of where I've drawn those blue arrows that come kind of right down below, straight down from the dam. There is, like I say, there's a little trickle of water that comes out and drains down towards John Petrie Road. But on the far west side of the dam, where I drew that little box up there near the dam, that is where the auxiliary spillway is.
Okay.
And it's a little difficult to see, but kind of on the lower half of that box, where the contour lines there are very close together, that's where you can see that eroded hole below the dam. So the water is sort of spilling through the auxiliary spillway and then falling down there and creating that hole. And those blue arrows below that are showing where that water's draining away on downstream. So, and it's a little bit too difficult to see here. I tried to highlight where the property lines of the applicant's property are, and there are those red lines that you see that come down through the lake, and then it sort of widens out down near the dam and goes all the way down to John Petrie Road, where he was just pointing out. So the only real way for someone from the applicant's main portion of their property to get to the dam would be to, I guess, canoe down the lake or something to get to the dam, which that isn't really a suitable means for accessing it for maintenance. A more logical and probably the best access to the dam would be to utilize Mr. Chumley's driveway, which, as we were saying earlier, is a private drive. But that dam is a little bit of a trouble spot for all those reasons, because it's divided among multiple owners and because some work needs to be done to it. You know, really, whether it's a part of this development or not, those issues really need to be addressed, you know, moving forward to ensure the dam is, you know, remains safe and functional.
Okay. With respect to accessing the dam for future homeowners, potential future homeowners, would it be a viable option, or would there be an opportunity to create some type of pathway or easement on the applicant's property off John Peachtree?
It might be possible where the water, you know, if it were repaired, and even now, where the water comes out of the primary spillway, that should be really where you might think of as where the kind of the center of the creek channel is. Right now, most of the water is flowing off over there to the left side, but if it were restored, most of the water would flow right there in the middle. And even if it's not done that way right now, that area is probably considered to be like a stream buffer. So ordinarily, we wouldn't consider, or we wouldn't encourage people to get into the stream buffer and try to clear something from access to the dam. There's also some floodplain in that region. I can't say for sure that it couldn't be done. You know, we might have to look at that a little more closely. The area where it would have to occur if it was on their property would be, if you see where those two red lines come down and intersect John Petrie Road, it would have to occur somewhere between those two red lines, because that's where the applicant's property is. And then that would bring them up to the back side of the dam. So they could get to the dam that way. If you had something like a lawnmower or something like that, you could reach that back side of the dam that way, potentially, if we could work something out there where we could be, you know, outside the stream buffers and, you know, not create more harm in building some sort of, like you might think of as kind of like a driveway to access that piece of the dam. Yeah.
Okay. Because the concern is if the only option is on Mr. Chumley's property, now we're talking easements, and obviously he would have to agree to that, and any future homeowners, you know, the HOA would have to access it from Mr. Chumley's property, from his driveway. I don't know how wide the driveway is by looking at this map, but, you know, I'm just not sure what the viability of that would be long-term.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And Mr. Chumley's driveway, because it is only serving his home, it's just a single width, you know, driveway. And so he also has a gate for his driveway that's some distance off the road, but, you know, I'm sure that's just to prevent just random people from turning down the driveway.
Sure.
So there are some things like that that do create, you know, issues with using it. And we could explore your idea of making its own driveway, maybe to the dam there from John Petrie Road. We'd have to kind of dig into that a little more and see, if we could do that.
Okay. All right. Let me see. I think that was all of the questions that I had. Stormwater. There was a special condition number 2 regarding the retention ponds not being reflected or identified on the revised site plan. I think you and I talked about it, and what was submitted, it's been satisfied.
Yes.
It's been identified as it, okay. Okay. All right, that's all I have for Andrew. You guys have anything? No? Okay. Okay, all right, thank you, Andrew.
Andrew.
I'll have the applicant approach.
Keep that out. Yeah, I was just about to ask something. Thanks, Andrew.
Regarding access to the dam,
Yes.
it appears at this date that the only option would be on Mr. Crumley's property.
That's,
What-
that's, no.
Okay.
There is room on the property that's represented in this application, as you're looking at the page, it's along that far right side of it. There's room there outside of floodplain, outside of buffers, where if an access needed to be provided, yes, thank you. If an access needed to be provided, one could be provided there. So
Okay.
that's what I think Mr. Heath was saying, and we need to dig into that, but but there is room there.
But, okay, there is room there, but that's not on the site plan or anything, because we're just
Well,
now having
no,
this
because we're-
discussion. Okay,
We're not at that point where, but
Okay.
yes.
okay. There is a considerable amount of damage, and I'm not sure how long you've owned the property, I'm assuming not too
We don't own
long,
it today.
in comparison to the erosion over the years.
We don't own it at all.
Oh,
We're
you
just
don't
the
own it, okay,
applicant,
okay,
yeah.
all right. There appears to be, and based on Andrew's recommendation, there's some repair work that needs to be done on the dam, and I understand that the dam is shared among 3 owners, with the primary, with 50% of the dam being on the subject parcel. Approximately 50%. But it also appears, based on Andrew's inspection as well as his testimony, that the primary spillway needs to be replaced. My concern is, and I understand you have detention ponds in the lakes, that will hold it, but the concern is over time, obviously, it's just going to cause further erosion. And I just don't want this to be an issue down the road for Mr. Crumley or the Phillips or even the future homeowners at this development. So that's something that I think we need to address.
You want to address?
Did you have
that?
comments?
Sure.
Neville Allison, 3500 Lennox Road, Atlanta, Georgia. I'm the managing partner of the Revive Land Group. I appreciate everybody's comments. Would have loved to be at that meeting yesterday with the Phillips and Chumleys, but to answer your question, and we've conveyed this to the Chumleys as well as the Phillips in our neighborhood meeting, we are 100% amenable to footing our fair share of any sort of required dam improvements, spillway improvements, et cetera. As Kevin mentioned, and Andrew alluded to, there on the southern portion of the property next to John Peachtree is a lot of wetlands and stream buffers. However, there's approximately 20 to 25 feet along the eastern property line that would provide access for ongoing maintenance. But to answer your question directly, we would be fine, again, whether it's a pro rata share of the ownership of the dam or the ownership of the total lake, of footing our fair share on any applicable county or state regulations regarding the dam and the lake.
Okay, thank you.
I have a follow-up question to that. because while you are agreeable to helping fix this problem, when are you taking ownership of the property? Because what happens is he's up here making this agreement, but until he takes ownership of the property, we have no enforcement. And I find it interesting that a lot of times ownership doesn't transfer until they get an LDP. And typically in our zoning applications, we don't give them a time restriction of when they have to file for an LDP. So while I appreciate his willingness to help address this situation, there's no time frame for them to do so because of those other ways that they can get around not doing it immediately. So to me, this is a better question to be asked to the property owner, because this needs to be addressed, I would say, within the next 3 to 6 months, not potentially years down the road. So now that I've made more of a comment, in your contract, and again, I understand you don't have to disclose this, but when do you take possession of the property? Is it upon the rezoning, or is it upon the issuance of the LDP?
Yes, ma'am. There's a lot there in that question, so I just want to address it in totality. The last part, we would take possession at LDP, but as it relates to the remediation on the dam, the Chumleys, the Phillips, the property owner, and us, we can't agree to a specific scope on the remediation of the dam until that has been engineered, and that is part of the LDP process. So it's not trying to say, hey, we don't want to go fix the dam right now. It's that has to be professionally engineered. You know, it sounds easy to replace the standpipe, for instance, or the spillway. Well, what that involves is draining the lake to a certain level, clearing the dam of vegetation, which is trees, digging out the old standpipe and putting it in. And again, all of that has to be permitted and engineered and bid before any sort of specific development agreement could be reached between whether it's just the current property owners or the developer.
Thank you.
Can you put a reversion clause? 18 months or 2 years?
Legal?
You're asking whether or not a reversion clause could be for what purpose? I mean, I highly doubt that they are going to expend funds and then have it be, revert if it's not completed within a certain time period. That's obviously a decision that the developer needs to make, but I think that would be a lot, that would be a lot to ask.
Well, then it would have to be done before an LDP is issued. But that could be years too.
But that could be years, because look at how many zonings that we've approved that have yet to be built. And those zoning conditions have not been done because they haven't filed for their LDP. And more than likely, because of the timing, the original developer has now walked away. So I don't know, again, the applicant has a contract with the property owner, but to me, we need to have a stipulation that goes back to the current property owner to address this before they can start the process to even go through the LDP.
How could you put a stipulation on the current owner?
So essentially, I'm not sure what Commissioner Sheffield is looking to do with this application, but if it was going to be approved as presented today, put a stipulation in there that, the dam would have to be addressed within, I'm going to say 6 months. And then that would again force it back between the property owner and the applicant here to work out that agreement cost-wise, right? Because if they don't do it, then they lose the property and the rezoning.
But what I'm hearing is we're creating a sense of urgency, but the reality is if the applicant were to retreat right now, there is no enforcement to improve the dam. So I think in good faith, if you're truly looking at urgency to resolve the problem, the only legal or binding way for that to happen would be to move forward in good faith.
And I have a suggestion as well for the council to consider.
We didn't ask you a question. I'm sorry.
Okay,
This
no
is a
problem. I
discussion. This
apologize.
is a discussion. So let us finish our discussion first, please, and then we'll ask a question when appropriate. So there's also nothing that if we don't rezone this property, forces the property owner to fix it either.
Correct.
And so, again, the condition can remain, and then, again, additional property damage be done. So that's kind of where we need to weigh what's the best way to address this.
And I think what I'm saying is, in my opinion, the best way to move forward is with someone who we know is committing to helping resolve the problem, whereas we don't know if the current owner has an interest in resolving the problem.
And I understand that, but they're here today, they say they want to resolve the issue, they commit to it, and then they walk away. Then the property owner is left with rezoned property with the condition that another developers could potentially come along and say, oh, no way, we're not touching that with this condition. And the reason why I'm saying that is I've got a parcel in my district that had a Class A dam on it that had stipulations, and, you know, everybody is like, we ain't touching that. So that's why. And again, I guess Andrew didn't say this was a Class A dam. So I'm assuming it's
That would be state regulated.
right. But again, sometimes when you put these stipulations on, it'll, you know, they can agree to it, but they can also walk away, and it'll deter the next person from doing it.
So I've had this situation in my district too. But what, if it's in need of repair, what has happened over the years with the current owners? And Mr. Chumley and the Phillips, have they maintained it in their share? I don't know. But if it's at a point now that it needs repair, they're gonna have to come together and fix it before anybody's gonna take it over.
Well, the issue is when you look at the dam and the condition of it, obviously, there's been neglect for years at this dam. So, you know, with the current owner not addressing it, I'm just not extremely confident of what type of action will be taken to move it forward. Perhaps there may be a little bit more motivation since there is a purchase contract that's been presented, but I just don't want there to be an issue in the long run. And from what I see with these photos, that is clearly what the challenge will be. I think that there should be additional conversation around this, and I appreciate the applicant being amenable to work with Mr. Crumley and the Phillips, but I'd like to see the alternative access to the dam. I don't know that conversations were had with Mr. Crumley with respect to using his driveway to receive an easement on his driveway. I'm not sure if those conversations have occurred with him, but I'd like to see and submit it to Stormwater for additional review where access would be on the dam, because what I don't want to happen is this to be an issue for future residents at this property. And I know this puts you in a difficult position. You mentioned engineering, but I think that there can be some type of preliminary review and an initial assessment without possibly, you know, taking a deep dive, no pun intended, into an engineering study. But I would feel comfortable moving forward if we have something a little bit more concrete. And what that means from your end as the potential buyer, I'm not sure, because you're not at this point, maybe even in a position to say what those things are, but I'm just not in a position to move forward with this with what I have before me either.
May I respond, or is that?
Do you guys have anything else?
I do have one issue. Normally, these zonings are based on a contract upon approval from zoning. I don't know what your contract is or what your closing date looks like if this gets approved, but if this gets approved today, I'm just saying, and you have, I don't know, a window of when you're closing, could you commit to, once you own the property at closing in the next 60 days or whatever that date is, that you would work with the other two property owners to repair the dam, or no? I'm asking him, let him respond first.
Thank you.
please.
Again, we're willing to and have had discussions with the property owner saying, yes, let's move forward and figure out how to fix the dam and all share in that cost. To answer your question about the day we close, could we go in and, the day we close, can we go in and repair the dam? And the answer to that is no, because it requires permits. You have to, not just with the county, but permits with the EPD. And to answer your earlier question, it is not a state-regulated dam, so there would not be, I don't think, a state permit other than what's called a nationwide permit from the Army Corps of Engineers. But again, it's not a matter of just going out there and saying, hey, we're going to fix the standpipe the day we close, or even right afterwards. Not only do we have to come up with a scope, but it would be a significant cost to the property owners as well to, what I would say, do the full Monty, or, a deep dive, as Commissioner Sheffield mentioned. And, it's not my place to commit those property owners to those repairs. That could be a significant burden to them. Again, I'm willing to pay my share, and I think I've committed that. I'm fine with it as a zoning condition. My only, question or two comments would be, the longer a zoning process is delayed, the less likelihood it has of going forward. You run out of time to go and get your engineering done, and this is a complicated assemblage. There's 6 property owners to hold together on this deal outside of just the lake. And so that would be one comment. And the second is, I'm just not sure, or what I would love to hear is some direction from the commission on what we should accomplish in those 30 days, specifically. Because again, we have agreed to pay our share. We are talking to the property owners. We commit not only to pay our share of the repairs, but there's also significant investigations and dollars spent to go determine those repairs. And we're not asking the property owners to share in that. We're, doing the dam inspection. We're paying for all the engineering ourselves. And so, I would ask the commission to take that in consideration as well.
And I wasn't saying you had to do that immediately at your closing, because you'd have to have 30, 60 days, maybe longer. But if there was a time frame, once you do own the property, is what I was trying to.
Yes, ma'am. My suggestion there was going to be to just tie it to the LDP, that, a development agreement shall be reached with the adjacent property owners, and engineering done for any agreed upon dam repairs, tied to our LDP as a condition.
And I think that's where some of my concerns were a couple of things. One, I didn't hear, and I could be wrong, that a breach of this dam was imminent, that this is, I didn't hear that piece. So I think we've started to focus as if we think that's the issue. And secondly, we also should take into account that the applicant is not the sole owner of the dam. And to provide a stipulation on 1/3 of the ownership of the dam, I think would be inappropriate, because he cannot guarantee that his 2 neighbors will consent to any type of funding for the repair of the dam.
But the items that need to be repaired fall solely on his property. And he has had conversations with the other two owners, and they are agreeable to sharing in those repairs, as we heard from Mr. Crumley earlier.
No, because you have a spillway.
The spillway is on
to the
Mr.
west.
Crumley's property.
But I think all of those are part of the repair of the dam. You can't.
Right,
if-
no,
if
we
you did not
understand
improve
that.
or- Right, so what I'm saying is that 1/3, we would be holding accountable the entire repair of the dam, which I don't disagree should be done.
Sorry, go ahead.
No,
I'm sorry.
but we would be holding one party accountable for all phases or all pieces of property.
But we're not.
Okay.
We're not holding him solely responsible for the entire dam, but I am holding him responsible for the dam that falls within his property line. The Phillips and Mr. Crumley have agreed, not just today, but also at the community meeting, that they are willing to pay their fair share, which we also heard from the applicant.
Right.
So we're not making him or asking him to be responsible for the entire dam.
No,
Obviously, but what's on his property.
Right, I
With the
understand.
agreement that the other two property owners would also be responsible and willing to pay to repair their portion of the dam, so the dam will be made whole.
I share the concern of the dam. If only 1/3 of the dam is repaired, maybe I need to be re-educated, but I didn't think that's the way dams work, that you could just fix
That's
one
not what-
piece. But
They all have to.
Right, it has to be done in totality, so I'm saying,
Right.
I think it's a separate issue of addressing the dam, and just in my mind, because of the complexity of 3 owners of a single breach opportunity.
Right, but again, all 3 owners are willing to make the repairs. Just obviously, we're hearing from the applicant because he's one of the 3 owners, but all 3 are willing to pay their fair share to correct the dam.
But there's no enforceable mechanism to do it, that's my only.
Well, it's no forcible mechanism for him to do it either, and to the point that you made earlier, it's good faith. So if if the willingness is to give the applicant good faith that it'll be done, then the same needs to be spread to the property owners.
They would need to come up with an agreement
Right,
with the 3 property owners' property.
which is part of what I was.
So that would need to be done. You know what I'm referring to, what happened in my district, because you were the attorney for that too. So, you want to hold it for 30 days and let's see what they can work out with that 3 owners?
But before we do that, Commissioner Gambrill had her hand up. I
Oh,
think
I'm
she wanted to.
And in this discussion, you know, of the other 2 property owners that are also impacted, to me, they're only having damage because this hasn't been maintained, right? So as far as other means to remedy this, it's a civil action. So in some sense of the words, you know, we're trying to prevent a civil action, having to go to court to force this issue to be addressed through the rezoning. But that's the only other remedy the Chumleys and the Phillips have if this property owner chooses not to address the major issue, which is the pipe is not draining correctly, which is resulting in damage to the Chumley property, as was put on record.
Thank you. It's just unfortunate that there's been so much neglect over the years, and obviously that does not fall on you. But there's definitely been some added stress to the adjoining properties because of that neglect. And I'm glad that you all are agreeing to correct the issue and make the repairs. I also understand that with the engineering process and the analysis, it may take a little while, and obviously funding, as you mentioned earlier, but I would like to hold it for 30 days. What I'd like is updated stormwater comments with access to the dam.
off of Mr. Crumley's property. I think it was pointed out to the east of the subject parcel, there may be an opportunity to have some type of pathway to the dam for future maintenance and repair. So if we can have that updated information. Now, as far as the homeowners and the applicant coming to some type of agreement to the extent that you can without having an engineering analysis, then that would also be helpful.
Okay, is that your motion to continue?
Yeah.
I mean, hold.
Yeah. So I make a motion to hold Z-10-2025 to the July 15th zoning hearing for the applicant to address the dam issues along with the property owners and submit an updated plan to stormwater to reflect access to the dam from the subject parcel.
Second, and discussion. I do have one other question, I'm sorry. The total number of units, is it still at 120?
No, ma'am,
That's-
114.
Okay,
We
that's
we
what I
applied
thought.
for 120, and we worked with the neighbors. We had, I don't know, 20 people, 15 people at our neighborhood meeting. You know, there's 2 here now, so I think we've.
Okay. And also, I'd like to point out that there are no variances, and RSL allows up to 5 units per acre, and you're at 2.5.
2.4, yes, ma'am.
2.4, which is allowable in LDR. So that's a positive thing.
Thank you.
Any other discussion,
I'll
Commissioner
just
Gamble?
I'll just make one comment, and I'm going to pick on Kevin here. You presented facts on ranch houses, but your renderings were not ranches. So where's the ranches? That's all I'm going to say.
Yes, ma'am. They're actually ranch homes. They just have a bonus room above the garage. So 1.5 stories is what those would be
Right.
considered.
Where are the true ranches? Not 1.5 stories, true ranches.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. We got to call the question. Motion carries 4-0 with Chairwoman Cupid absent. Okay, we're going to take a 10-minute break, or maybe break for lunch. What do y'all?
Well, these did not show up last.
I know, but are they here?
I don't know.
Okay.
But if you want to ask John. We still have one before this. Right, but in terms of the project, they're not here. We can just stick it out and do this one.
Okay, but we still need to take a 10-minute break, restroom break. So let's do that and come back at 11:45.
Ready? Okay. Okay, next case is LUP 8 of 2025. Angela Benitez requests the board to allow more vehicles and adults than the code allows in land lot 478 of the 19th District. The property is located on the west side of Chamery Drive, southwest of Callaway Road. Is the applicant here? Is the applicant here for LUP 8, Angela Benitez? Is there anyone here opposed to LUP 8? Madam Vice Chair and Board, the applicant is not present, and there is no one here in opposition.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Allen.
Was the applicant notified to be
Yes.
here?
They were at Plan Commission.
Yeah, did they respond to notification that they wouldn't be here?
No, we sent them an email on Friday. There's only one person we had to call by telephone who did not have an email, and they indicated they were going to be here today. I'm not sure if that was that person or not.
Okay, what's that?
You want to see if we can call them and see if they can come in?
No, I'll just make a motion to hold,
Okay,
continue for 30 days.
okay.
Second. Any discussion, call the question? Did you have discussion?
No, keep it going.
The motion carries 4-0.
Okay, next case is LUP 11 of 2025. Richard Gonzalez requests a temporary land use permit renewal to allow more vehicles and adults than the code allows in land lot 795 of the 19th District. The property is located on the north side of Hopkins Court, east of Hopkins Road. Is the applicant present? Is there anyone here opposed to LUP 11? Madam Vice Chair and Board, the applicant is not present, and there's no one in opposition.
Thank you, John. If you can confirm with LUP 11 whether or not they attended the PC hearing, I think they might have not attended both in this month and last month?
Yes, the applicant for LUP 11, they no-showed at the May 6th Planning Commission hearing, and they also no-showed at the June 3rd Planning Commission hearing.
Okay.
And did we contact them?
We sent them an email or called.
Okay. Was that call made yesterday?
It was made on Friday.
It was made on Friday, and you didn't make any contact?
No.
Okay, but you were able to leave a message?
Well, when we talked to in person, and then the other ones we sent an email.
Okay, so the one you talked to in person, was that the one on Friday?
Yes,
Okay. And was that the applicant?
yes.
And the applicant confirmed that he would be here?
Well, I'm not sure which one it was, Commissioner, because we called all the LUPs that are on the agenda today. Because
Okay.
LUPs have a tendency not to show up.
Yeah.
So we called them and emailed them on Friday to let them know they had to be here today at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, I was asking specifically for LUP 11 if you made
I'm not
voice
sure,
contact.
I'm not sure if that was the email or the phone call.
Okay. Do we have a telephone number to reach them now?
Let me see, there's probably one on their application.
I mean, customarily, we would reach out to ask, but there was a no-show in both May and June, so I'm just not confident that the plan or the goal is to actually attend.
The code allows for the failure to attend may result in a dismissal with prejudice, rejection of the application, or continuance to the next hearing. And that's, of course, at the board's discretion.
Okay.
And-
All right. Go ahead.
Can I say something?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, also, just pointing out, they were both no-shows for Planning Commission 2 months in a row, but staff has recommended denial on both, and Planning Commission recommended denial on both.
I am aware of things. I appreciate that, and I think maybe partly for the denial is that they were not in attendance, in addition to the general application, but nonetheless, I will make a motion to deny LUP 11 and that will be dismissed with prejudice.
Wait, it's got to be one
Or
or the other.
without. Pardon?
It's got to be one or the other, right?
Correct. Okay, all right, so I will dismiss it. I'm sorry, deny it.
Motion to deny.
Motion to deny.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you.
Discussion?
Sure.
Do you need to give a timeframe to come into compliance, or will code enforcement automatically do that because it's denied?
Yes, we will.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Call the question. Motion for denial passes 4-0.
Okay. Next one on the agenda is LUP 12 of 2025. Jonathan Martin requests a temporary land use permit to allow more vehicles than the code allows in land lot 307 of the 17th district. The property is located on the southeast corner of Norton Circle and Orange Drive. Is the applicant present? Is there anyone here opposed to LUP 12? Madam Vice Chair and Board, the applicant is not present, and there is no one here in opposition.
Okay, and much like the last one, John, just for the record, can you confirm if this applicant also was a no-show for the PC hearings?
Yes, this applicant no-showed on May the 3rd, and they also no-showed, excuse me, on May the 6th.
May 6th.
And he also no-showed on June the 3rd, and that's where the Planning Commission recommended it be denied.
Okay, and with this application also, there was an attempt to reach out and
Yes.
confirm today's appearance? Okay. All right, thank you for that. With that, Vice Chair, I will make a motion to deny LUP 12, 2025.
Second. Any discussion? Call the question. Motion carries 4-0 with Chairwoman Cupid absent.
And that completes your agenda, Madam
That
Vice Chair.
completes our agenda because Z13 is continued. Okay, well, thank you all for being here today. We are adjourned.
Just in time.